Hey, Jason.
Hello, my friend. How are
How
you
you doing?
today?
Good. Lovely Wednesday.
Lovely Wednesday. You know what Wednesdays mean?
Yeah, I know what Wednesday means. It means Wacky Wednesday. Ah!
Wacky Wednesday. The Wednesday where we try to encourage each other. We Greg and I love to share like stories and funny things that we read, inspirational stories and just things encouragement because a lot of our news is sensationalized
That's right.
and they want to like they say, have you ever heard that phrase, Greg? Remember, if it bleeds it leads.
That's right. That's
So
right. So funny things in the paper, funny things online. Um, that we came up with. What did you find out today?
so anyway, my first story is an amazing discovery happened down in Ecuador, down in towards the Amazon. And
Right?
the first story we have is that an archaeologist had found and used these uh, laser sensors, and they were looking around
LiDAR.
and they found a great big, humongous city that was hidden and lost in the woods. And they it's a massive, sophisticated lost city in the dense Amazon rainforest region of the eastern Ecuador in the Andes foothills. This is the oldest, this is older than any other site we know in the Amazon. We have Eurocentric views of civilization, but this shows we have to change our ideas about what is culture and civilization and what it looked like. And basically, it goes on to say how the expert class had, and all of us have ideas of what it looked like down in the Amazon. Maybe we get the idea, it says here, that they're just in huts and sit around naked and do in their small little communities. When this said it was huge, that they were amazing urban planners and they could have up to 100,000 people living in this city,
Wow.
and they are just mind boggled by the advance this thing shows of these people. And I thought this story was amazing.
You know, I watch a lot of that stuff, a lot of history, and you know they keep saying that there's no way that mankind, at that time, that how old those cities are, that there's no way that we were coming out of caves and hitting rocks together, trying to hunt with stone axes and stuff. But they're forgetting uh, God. We had a whole civilization here for thousands of years, right? Before the flood of Noah. So, of course, that stuff's out there. Of course, they're going to see that stuff, but they're not going to account. They're not going to say, well, this must be before the flood of Noah because it's so great of a city. The facts are right in front of them.
Yeah, I think why I like this story is it reminds me of one of the biggest things I've dealt with all my life is the importance of humility. We have an expert class who thinks they're so wise, and then they get written up in the paper if it fits a certain agendas, both whether
Right?
it's conservative, religious, whatever, it just fits it. And we just have to be humble because new things are being discovered. You think you got it all figured out, and
Right.
something brand new just opens your eyes and makes you think. And if you have been so prideful that you said, this is how it is, there's no other options, and it's just embarrassing. And I look back on all the things, that I may have just made declarations on where I'm like,
Yeah.
maybe I didn't need to be that prideful.
Right. Right. You know what they say though? The science. Yeah, they all tell you. Well, the science says this. Science don't say anything. Scientists do.
Yeah,
So
science
you
doesn't
know,
talk, it doesn't write
so
books.
no, no, that's right. And if the scientists ain't looking at, um, I don't know how we would put that, pre-Noah civilization, right? They're not going to say that. They're still looking at people coming up in the cave, the evolutionary Darwin thing. They're not coming up with Adam and Eve was here for, he lived 900 and some years. I mean, that's a long time to live. Could have did a lot with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and they discovered this city, which has only been it was about 1,000 years ago, they figure, and um, indeed, this is changes the whole idea of the history in the Americas. And then I found this highlighted, and I thought it was interesting, but yeah, must not have been that interesting. But the expert classes of people say, hey, look, this is how things are, and
Yeah.
they make these declarations and everything with no humility that maybe they could be wrong. It reminds me of my poor son, who I love, who actually is now an adult, but when he was younger, my son might have been a little bit like me and was be willing to tell a tall tale and just really let it rip. And I kept telling him, I'm like, as you're getting older, it's not as cute anymore. And I said, hey, this is a way that you can do it. I knew I couldn't quite get him to stop cold turkey. But I
Right.
told him, as I said, you need to give yourself an out. You got to have a little humility.
Humility.
And I said, please say it with like some humility. Like, I read somewhere that such and such and such happened. All right. I heard somewhere. Give yourself an opening that you might be wrong. And there's two things that I've noticed since then. You read the expert class, a lot of their comments is, it's very likely, it's this happened. And then the articles run away with it and
Oh,
say, this is what the experts are saying. And now,
right.
even with all the stuff, even this medical stuff that went on in our country and different stuff, they're all using their little outs they had. I said that it's probably this, it's probably a good idea to do that. But is that what you really
Right.
heard when it was interpreted to you and the
Right.
news was no, this was like the expert classes say.
That's right. Speaking of expert classes saying stuff, on my topic today, I have some headline news that
Ah,
the media has put out.
I love
Right.
it when you show off these things. They
So,
crack me up when you tell me this stuff.
so we have today here. Let's see. It was put out. Something went wrong in a jet crash. Experts say.
We needed an expert for that one, didn't
Yeah.
we?
Yeah. Exactly. Right.
Is this one of
Uh,
those jet classes where it was planned on, or was this one of those where something
yeah.
actually went wrong? Let's ask an expert.
Let's ask an expert on that. Let's say police begin campaign to run down jaywalkers.
Ah,
Yeah.
you got to get
Yeah.
those ones, and if you just walk, you're never gonna catch them.
Yeah. 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 You're never going to catch the jaywalkers.
You better run them down.
Enraged cow injures farmer with axe.
I've had those dreams. Wait, I
How
think
did
we got
they
our
know?
yeah, we got our next scary movie that we can write. We're gonna
Right?
write our script, and it's gonna be the Axe Cow.
The axe cow. All right. Here we
That's
got another
good.
one here. Teacher strikes idle kids.
Teacher strikes idle
Idle
kids.
kids. Now, I don't
Yeah,
know. There was no comment there. There's no,
not great headlining, but yeah, you get too idle and you don't get your job done, we're gonna whoop you.
gonna get you. We got another one here. This one here takes a little bell.
All right.
Miners refuse to work after death. What is wrong with these people?
Oh my gosh, some people today, back when I was
No,
a boy,
back when
we
I was
worked and
little.
we were dead.
I can't
That's
believe these guys not
that's
wanting to
good.
show up after death. I can't believe
I
that.
love it. I love
There
it.
we
All right.
go.
We're gonna come back
More.
to some more of those.
Let me
And
give you one more.
one
One
more
more
before
here.
okay, you're gonna have enough to put in between the other two stories, right?
Oh, hey, you know what? The media.
You got
Uh,
plenty? Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I
War
didn't want you to run
dims.
out because I wanted you to come back.
War dims hope for peace. Yeah.
That's
Hey,
perfect.
who knew, right? Who knew?
I heard
I,
war is an
I
anathema to peace. I heard that somewhere from an expert.
from an expert, even. That's right.
Those are great headlines. All right, you
Those
ready
are
for the
funny.
next one up?
All right, let's see what you got there.
All right. This one it comes from courtesy. Well, I'll just test you and see if you know who this guy is. Who is this guy, Greg?
That's pretty.
That is. And do you remember what his nickname is or what he'd been called before?
I don't think I have a clue.
He's been called Mr. Irrelevant.
Mr. Irrelevant.
You know
That's
why
right.
that he was called that?
Why was he called that?
He was called that. That's what the oh, you know. You
Because he was
know.
picked last.
He
He
was
was
picked
picked
last.
last in the whole scheme of everything. Last picked person wasn't supposed to be no good. They just picked him. He was the most irrelevant player on
Yep.
the roster.
And he was the last player in the NFL draft. Most last times the last player picked in the NFL draft is like you're doing your cousin Mabel a favor by
Right.
picking his nephew just so he could say he was drafted. The odds are the last player is never going to make the team. But Josh Purdy not only made his team in San Francisco, he became their starting quarterback, and now
That's true.
he was the starting quarterback in the Super Bowl.
In the Super Bowl. That's right. That's right.
Amazing.
It is amazing. He actually did really well, from what I hear. Everything. I did watch a little bit of it, so
Yeah, I haven't watched as much NFL for a little while for different reasons, but this guy has made me kind of, and a few other NFL players have made me think I would like to watch a little bit and see what they're up to. And, you know, I always have an affinity towards people who are in the spotlight and publicly serving God. They got it so tough, man. You know, they got all the temptations that come. Could you imagine being a young, good looking guy like he is and the starting quarterback from an NFL football team? The
right.
temptations, man, that's crazy. So be praying for these guys. I always appreciate he's a Christian. And this is what happened. It's before the Super Bowl, I saw him talking. And of course, he said, all glory to God, you know, which you hear a lot from people, whether they serve God or
Right.
not.
Right.
You
Y'all
know?
want him on their side.
Yeah. So, you know, I thought it was kind of the obligatory, hey, here's the thing to say. But he went on and kept talking. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And he said this. He said, when asked in the interview what kept him grounded, the young quarterback said, I would say my faith. Everything I do is for God. So I don't get wrapped up saying, look, I'm playing in the NFL and I have to hold on to this thing that I do for a job. I just let that go to God. And then
Wow.
he went on to say a little bit more because so now he can kind of made me listen a little bit. And then he goes on to say, whatever I'm doing, I know what my purpose is. That's in the Lord. That is where my identity is. It's my faith in God. That's it.
Wow. Sounds like a very mature Christian right there.
Well, that's a
I
pretty
wish
amazing
I wish we
statement.
had a bunch of those people walking around saying, my identity is in God. You can't, you can't hurt me by saying I'm good or I'm bad or it's all up to God. It's
Yeah,
God.
that's a good
So
point.
that's man, that'd be nice to have your faith grounded that good. That's fantastic.
Isn't that amazing? And he goes
Yes,
on
it
to
is.
say a few more things because to be honest with you, I've heard people say one and two good sentences. When you get into three and four, I'm like, okay, now you got my real attention. And he
Right.
says, one, if the things I've been reading throughout the season, oh, they asked him about what being grounded. And he said, one of the things that helped me keep grounded, I've been reading throughout the season is Mark 8:34, where Jesus is telling his disciples, if you want to follow me, you have to deny yourself. Just take your cross and follow me.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think yeah. Well, we can do something on that one.
That's a big comment when you're willing to lay down. This guy's got everything, as they say, the tiger
Right.
by the tail,
Right.
and he's supposed to lay all that down and give it to God, and it's amazing.
That's amazing. That's wonderful.
And he finishes up with this: I've never been the biggest, the fastest, the strongest, or any of that, but God always has given me an opportunity, whether it's been in high school, college, or obviously the NFL. And all you need is a chance and to be able to trust him.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
How about that, huh?
Hey, I think that's wonderful. Purdy, you got my vote.
We got to keep praying for that guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and
Maybe
now,
next year do again, same thing, make it all the way up.
or how about this though? Sometimes people are watching how you handle it when you're all the way down.
That is true.
But
That's actually more so true than watching you on the way up, because on the
yeah,
way up it's easy, but when you're down and out, that's when your colors show.
yeah, he's on top of the world right now, and we want good things for him and stuff. But we also want that strength in him, so when things go tough, because it's always going to get tough. That's what happens to all of us. Will he keep that same confidence in God?
That's true.
That's what we got to pray for.
That's what we got to pray for.
What's going to happen if he gets injured, he's out for a year, or his
Right.
team goes on a losing streak, or if he just plain old gets cut?
Right. Throws a whole bunch of pick six.
Is
Yeah, who
he
knows?
still going to be trusting God with it? The way he sounds to me, sounds like he doesn't take his identity in that. So if he does lose it, it doesn't matter, because what's important to him is identity in Christ. And that is a mature guy.
That's a mature guy. I think you're right on that. That's fantastic.
All right, you got some more headlines for me?
Okay, back for some more headlines here. Let's see. Here we go. Cold wave linked to temperatures.
Cold.
Hey!
All right, bring it on, expert
Cold wave
glass.
linked to
I didn't
temperatures.
know that.
Yeah. If strike isn't settled quickly, it may last a while.
All right.
All right.
That deserves a Pulitzer right there.
There we go. Here's some red tape holds up new bridges.
I'm not driving on that bridge.
I'm not driving on that bridge.
What bridge is that, Greg? Here, you heard it here first, folks. We're going to report to you some bridges that are held up by red tape. You don't want to drive over.
I wonder if it's like Gorilla tape, or maybe some, duct tape, or exactly what kind of red tape that is.
Yeah.
Astronaut takes blame for gas in spaceship.
His fellow astronauts are like, you need to go outside for that.
Hey, Bob, that's enough of that.
Hey, buddy, I need my space.
I need my space. Here we go. Local high school dropouts cut in half.
Oh, what a bummer.
What a bummer. You drop out. It's like, oh, that's it.
Yeah.
Maybe they're in one of those boxes.
That's because when you drop out, you get one of those blue collar jobs. They're dangerous. Whew, cut you right
down. Dangerous job.
Not like being a lawyer.
Hospital are sued by 7-foot doctors. Now, I don't know if that's like they have 7 feet, or if
they're 7 feet tall.
Their height is they're 7 feet tall.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We have to find that out.
All right, so
we're going to investigate that.
Here's my last one here. I'm going to give this early morning there. All
Wake
right, you
up.
ready for this? This is the
I'm
best
ready.
one.
Okay.
Typhoon rips through cemetery, hundreds dead.
Okay. I heard it and I figured out, but you got to do that one again because you glitched out just in
Okay,
halfway.
there we go. Typhoon rips through cemetery, hundreds dead.
Oh,
Okay.
you hope there were dead.
Oh my gosh. You know
Those are
what?
great
And those are the
headlines.
people who are relying on
Yeah.
to get stuff straight for us, you know.
Yeah. They need to be humble people too.
they need to they need to leave themselves a little humility there, a little out, like you were saying.
Yeah. I
So
wonder I wonder if those people can laugh at themselves. Like when they hear that,
they go back and look at it. Oh
are they
no.
kind of able to go, "Oh, I could have done better."
Right.
Because I think a lot of people have a hard time going back and facing their errors and say, I could have done better. That's
I
one of
could
the
have did
nice
better.
things about failing a lot as a young man and failing out through my whole life. I got lots of practice at being humble, and I had to work on it.
I got a lot of practice eating humble pie.
And it
Yeah.
is kind of crusty,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, yeah. Nobody likes to eat it,
no,
but
no, but it's good to be humble.
right.
All right, I'm going to leave you this. This is our final story. So this story comes out of the tragedy that is going on over in Gaza, but we only hear, just the worst stories and everything. But the reason I like positive stories is because I really believe God's on the work and there's going to be a revival. I do not believe in the defeatist part. I think we have a victorious church. We'll always have evil people out there and evil
That's
going
true.
on in the world, but that's been going on forever. But the
That's
rest
true.
of us have had ebbs and flows and revivals and restorations and stuff. And I believe
Amen.
that. And because if you look at the past, is the best way to predict the future. And we have had revivals and coming back from it. Today's story is from the Palestine, and it's a story that is reporting on a former terrorist who was back in the 60s in the 6 Day War,
Right.
a guy named Taz Abu Sada. And he was a
That's a
former aide
mouthful.
to the late Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat. And he was recently talking and was interviewed by CBN News um, about how God's Holy Spirit is already working in people's hearts. There's stories coming out of Israel and there's stories coming out of Palestine of people who are seeing dreams and having visions. And in his case, his
Wow.
concern is that Muslims will come to the Lord like he has. He has decided to become a Jesus follower. Many Muslims are looking for an alternative to Islam. My team, he now has a team of missionaries in Gaza working right now as these bombs are going on and ready to just minister to anybody who comes to God. My team is sharing Christ. And so we're looking for any signs of the revival, what's going on with God, and what is happening. And what has started happening is people are coming out of their houses and talking to each other and finding out they have been having the same dream about Jesus. And Sada
Really?
said he believes hearts are turning because of these reports his people are sending and that hundreds of Gazans have encountered Jesus in their sleep.
That's awesome. That is wonderful news.
Yeah, these
You
guys saying
know,
they're coming out of their houses and saying, "You had the same dream I did. I had this dream." And his report, they said over 200 members in Gaza, 200 people had come out and started talking to each other, and they all gave their heart to Christ in one lump sum as they started talking about how they had the same
well,
dream
isn't
about
that
Jesus.
fantastic?
Amazing.
In the middle, you wouldn't think in the middle of a war like that against your enemy that's always been, I mean, Palestine, they've been enemy a long time ago. David threw a rock against, So I mean, you it's been going on forever and ever and ever. So
Yeah, yeah.
that we know of anyway. You can read the Bible back, but that is
Amazing.
awesome that God is working in Gaza, bringing people in dreams,
Yeah. Yeah, he said the Lord appeared to them in visions and dreams. And when they came out and talked, they were hugging each other and rejoicing as they realized they had all had the same dream. And
Isn't
he
that
feels
awesome?
obviously God's at work uh, in a very difficult situation. So that is amazing in of itself. But you know
That
what
is.
else is amazing is just this guy had come to Christ himself. He was fighting in the 6 Day War back in the 60s and against Israel. He hated them. And he was all mad then at the all of Islam for giving up on that fight and surrendering afterwards. So he was mean and angry. But he had met a Christian who shared with him Jesus, and that's when he decided to be a Jesus follower. It changed his perspective, even changed his perspective on Israel. And he recently moved to Israel in the hopes of seeing more Gazans come to Christ. God is going to do a lot of work around the world and in Gaza, and I want to be a part of that. And I think
That's
it's neat
great.
that he was able to go and live in Gaza, go and live now in Israel in peace, and his life has been changed. That guy needs prayer too, but
Yeah.
God's on the move.
He's on the move. And it goes to show you that, yeah, one person can share their experience with Jesus and what he did in your life or what he did in my life. You kind of just talk to somebody and you don't think it has too much of, you're like, okay, so I told this guy on a plane, most people don't want to hear, but when you're sitting next to him, they can't get away. So it's a captive audience.
I like those.
So you share a little bit, and who knows, maybe they're looking for that little nugget.
Yeah.
They're looking for something, and you don't know. And you share like you're supposed to, and something comes of it like that. That's wonderful.
Share the hope that's in you.
Absolutely wonderful.
All right, so that's our news for today and funny headlines. I hope people get
Uh,
encouraged. I mean, it's just too much sad news. It's too much because that's the loud noise that's out there, and that's all you hear. And there's actually really great things happening around the world. And
that's
so
true.
I hope, and there's things to laugh and have fun at too. And I hope we help some people do that.
That's right. All right, Jason. I
All right.
love you, brother.
All right.
And
Take care.
I will see you later on in the week.
All right. Keep out of
All right.
trouble.
Okay.
Bye, bud.
Bye.